Fiction at the Friary is a monthly fiction event that we hold here in Cork. Danielle and myself met one day in December 2016 in the Friary bar run by my brother Mike Darcy, and we all had a chat about putting on a regular fiction event. So we all said yes, let's do it. We rang up our first guest there and then, William Wall, whose latest novel, Grace's Day, has just been published. And he said yes immediately for no fee, and we were off. Well, what a guest we had, because the week before our very first event, on the final Sunday of January 2017, Bill became the first ever European writer to win the prestigious Drew Hines Prize in the US. So we're off to a great start with 70 or 80 people present. And we've continued since then. As I say, Fiction at the Friary is held on the final Sunday of every month from 3 to 6 p.m. No matter what else is going on, hail, rain, shine, football match, festival, we still do Fiction at the Friary on the final Sunday of the month. Except we don't do December, because I hate Christmas. And so we decided that we wanted our event to be inclusive, fun, supportive of writers and readers, free for our audience. We pay our guest author, we don't pay ourselves. Normally our guest author reads, we interview him or her. The audience has an opportunity to ask questions. We provide an optional writing exercise to everyone in the pub. We run an open mic. We hold a free book raffle, courtesy of our symbiotic relationship with Munster Literature Centre, and we always have jelly beans, hoops and marshmallows. We started this event with nothing except a venue and sound equipment provided by the Friary, and it's now been going for 1 year and 9 months. Our current sponsors are Hogan Architects, J. Rappel Morris Listers, Mike Darcy, Cork City Council, the School of English at University College Cork, and we also have a continuing relationship with Munster Literature Centre. So our sincere thanks to all, and to our wonderful audience who attend, read, contribute in so many ways. Occasionally we've ventured outside the confines of the Friary bar. We've recently run a Reading Your Own Work Aloud workshop with Pat Kiernan, director of Kirkadurka, and that was a huge success. We hope to do it again in the future. Last year, Pat Cotter of Munster Literature Centre invited us to put on an event at Cork International Short Story Festival. We organised a rapid-fire fiction event which featured 20 writers, all reading for 2 minutes each and writing for 2 minutes each, to create a communal short story on the spot. We also included a music plus story element with Conor McManus and Colin Scully, plus the wonderful Nick Kelly. This year, Pat asked us to do something far simpler. A showcase, he said. Choose 3 writers you found via your work at Fiction at the Friary. With characteristic daftness, we decided to make things much more complicated. We didn't want to simply choose 3 writers from the fantastic bunch of people who have delighted us in the past 21 months. We decided to hold a competition instead. We asked people to write fiction inspired by the prompt vertical motion of water. I think in the back of our heads we had thoughts about the River Lee and the current situation regarding flooding, etc. And the fact that the River Lee is so evocative anyway, and we love Cork, and we're here in Cork. So we had over 60 entries. The standard was extremely high, and the prize was to read here today. We added to the prize by offering some mentoring to the 3 finalists and a free place at our Reading Aloud workshop. So for the competition, we both read every single entry. We read stories about a young girl working in a drapery shop burned down by black and tans, an idiosyncratic Jewish ghost, Vikings carrying off a nun, a boy who builds Noah's Ark on top of his parents' garage roof, a couple on a Ferris wheel looking down at the river, the river as a sunken city, kayaking, swimming, drowning, children, legitimate and illegitimate, depression, family trauma, suicide, drug dealing, alcoholism, chancers, corner boys, festival clubbers, and an Easter egg sent from England back in the bad old days with a huge amount of condoms inside. We are very, very grateful to everyone who entered, and we're very, very grateful to be here. And it is with immense pleasure that I'm handing you over to Danielle to introduce our 3 finalists.
Hello everyone. Our first reader this afternoon is Niamh Bagnell with a story called Sunday Morning, Fitzgerald's Park. Niamh is a member of Midleton Writers Group and occasionally reads with the illustrious Poetry Divas. She was exiled in Dublin many years ago, and while there she hosted a weekly writing-based show on Liffey Sound and read mostly poetry around town at venues and events such as the Glór sessions, the Brown Red mixtape, the Irish Writers' Centre, Nighthawks at the Cobalt, the Sugar Club, and she has been published in the Stinging Fly magazine. She's also read at Electric Picnic, and she can be found a lot of Sunday mornings in Fitzgerald's Park. Some of the things that we admired about Niamh's wonderful story: the immediacy with which she portrays a short period of time, while also very deftly giving us glimpses of the character's past and inviting us to reflect on what may be in the character's future. It portrays confusion very well, and in keeping with the emotional confusion of the main character, I think it ends on a nice hint of ambiguity. So can we have a big welcome, please, for Niamh Bagnell.
Thanks so much, Danielle, for that kind introduction, and thanks to both of you as well for all the help and kind of preparation in building up to today. So this is Fitzgerald's Park, Sunday morning. I buy coffee and a yellow lollipop. We head for the eye-shaped pergola by the river. There's a lean figure inside, an adult with 2 little ones. He's facing the water. Something familiar in his shape catches me, and then I know it's Steve. He knows I'm here most Sundays. It's a joke we share at the start of each week. You'll never guess where I was. I almost turn away, but Tom's already making towards them with his little rain-geared waddle, so I follow him up the ramp. Steve looks glad to see me. After stilted greetings and trivial talk about the weather, he crosses to my side. His very nearness makes me awkward, makes me feel too warm. I thought about not coming, he says thickly after some silence. I mean, just waiting and seeing you for the first time on Monday again, after I interrupt, saying, you could have waited. I'm afraid he would say it out loud. I'm almost on the verge of pretending I don't remember, but then that's impossible. The older girl approaches, a pretty one with inquisitive eyes. Who are you, she asks. Now my conversation with her dad has continued beyond the usual pleasantries of park strangers. I'm your daddy's friend from work. Oh, well, I'm Sarah, and that's Julie, she says, all business. The younger one looks up with ridiculously big brown eyes through a mass of wide ringlets. She waves a fluffy pink dinosaur at me. Sarah continues her announcement. We're going to swamp this river. She returns to the game. I watch warily. She leads too far over the railing, and the smallies climb the benches, straining for a better shot of the swollen mass of dark water, firing twigs and pebbles, my little fellow with them. Look, Steve says, and I notice his eyes are tired and sort of agitated, not their usual cool and laughing blue. I'm not trying to ambush you, he lowers his voice, speaking urgently. I do care for my wife. It's just like, this is kind of something else. His hands tap quickly on the bench. like they do when he's pondering something important at work, when he has just a minute to find some brilliant answer to a problem. Maybe we should move on. I nod towards the playground. Tom won't leave without visiting, so the sooner we go, the sooner we can leave. The sky is heavy over us, threatening to burst. I've been obsessing too. Of course I have. It was my first work night out since joining the team. I felt completely carefree, drunkenly wild, as if I could do anything. But, as I keep telling myself, I shouldn't have. I only know him a few months, and there I was, upstairs marketing Elaine's housewarming, falling into his arms. All he'd had to do was stare at me longingly for the evening, as if seeing me for the first time. I couldn't quite get over what he saw. We left, said we'd share a cab, and then he led me through a gate that should have been locked, past the glass-glittered skate park, over the footbridge, and onto the soft grass of the riverbank. We'd sat, giggling and groping like teenagers, getting a rush from kissing and laughing, remembering what it was like to be younger under a clear and starry sky. We start walking. His little one, Julie, grabs Tom's hand to pull him along. They're the same size, but she's faster, and he protests at the speed. She releases him, shrugging. Steve walks close to me. When the older one is far ahead, he speaks again. I'm trying to say I have real feelings for you. I don't do this. You don't? No. I half laugh. No one does until they do. My mind skips guiltily to James, my husband, who's done nothing much wrong, except think that nothing much could go wrong. He's at home, putting a leisurely roast together, our weekly barter, dinner made for a few hours apiece. When we arrive at the playground, Julie hands Steve her dinosaur and heads for the swings. I follow Tom the other direction, to the sandpit. I'm miserable, I realise. Tired from the whole day yesterday of trying not to catch James's eye, in case he'd somehow know. Not even watching the soaps as usual, in case a storyline would make me blush and he'd wonder why. Tom wants to go under the wooden half-boat and isn't impressed I don't let him. The river has decided to join the playground, seeping up from beneath, flooding the make-believe shipwreck scene, making it perfectly real, deep pools and places. It's all dirty, darling. Dirty, he chants. Sarah is above, busily pushing down the sand down the wooden slide towards us, and I weakly tell her it would be great if she stopped. Then I try to tempt Tom to a discarded coffee cup sandcastle. He keeps returning to the sand shower. After a while, Julie decides to join us. Her dad follows, still holding the dinosaur high in one arm, like some men carry a newspaper. He looks completely innocent and unguarded as he follows her. He always seems so open. I'm sad, thinking how his wife must trust him utterly. Look, I don't want to make things awkward, he says. I nod at Sarah, who's watching closely from above. I'm sick of work talk, I say. He sees the audience. I've never enjoyed the project as much, he says, trying to catch my eye. But I'm watching the kids, blocking Tom from puddles. Well, I like the project I have, I say. No, you don't. You've said the acting partner is hard to work with. Don't. Please. I think of James doing a separate pot of carrots for Tom, so they're in batons, and not cooked with parsnips. Of course I do give out sometimes. Doesn't everyone? You're just afraid, he tries again. We'll figure it out together. Look, I say, this project's exciting because it's new. 2 years in, it'll be no better than your current. Julie's hair is sand-spattered, courtesy of Sarah, who at least seems bored by our conversation. You're wrong, he says. Before any of this, you know in the song, breathe underwater till the end. That's what I was like, breathing away underwater. And the other night, it was like finally coming up for air. I can't go back after that. Maybe he's just enjoying the drama, but he sounds like he believes it, like it's the most important thing to him, and he can hardly stand it. There's something about his energy that keeps me listening, though I'd like to be able to stop. It feels so wrong even considering this. I look up from a thicket of thought to find us short one child, Where's Sarah? He looks around, unworried, like a disappearance is part of the routine. She'll turn up. He spots her. Look, she's climbing the wall. The grips are slippery. She can't get beyond halfway up and trudges back to us, frustrated. Daddy, we have to go. When we're ready, Steve replies, and then to me, I need an answer. We're going too. Tom, 5 minutes. Tom toddles away, giggling as if running will prolong the fun. Well, I'm going now, says Sarah, stomping towards the playground's edge. He ignores her. Whatever this is, he says, we need to figure out what to do next. I turn it over in my head and play with it a while. Us continuing this, covertly, or maybe even making a life. I see Sarah sulking by the drinking fountain, Julie singing to her dinosaur. Steve speaks softly. My dad left us when I was her age. I got over it. Everyone was better off. I push away from considering it, struggle against being pulled in. We had a bit of fun. That'll have to be it. How can I convince you? Steve. I tried to wrench my eyes away, fearing the undertow, the swirling tug of him. I'll have to push to change teams and work at the next chance. We're friends. We have families. You better follow her. He glances up, and Sarah begins resolutely towards the museum, having seen him look. Don't make me follow you, he calls, keeping a calm tone despite the boldness. He says to me, hang on, 2 minutes, okay? Then follows her. I stroll behind with Tom and Julie. Toe. Tom points at the pond as he nears and bends to look for pebbles. Julie gets the gist and picks up a twig. All right. Steve's quietly talking with Sarah up the way. I'll take the time to think of something to say, to end it, something convincing so he really knows it's over. I walk them down to the pond's edge, alive with spring, fluffy moorhen chicks skating weightlessly across lily pads. I squat beside Tom to point out the precious sight. I'm not sure if I said, look, they're walking on water, or if I just thought it. But Julie puts a foot out confidently to stride after them across the pond, dinosaur in hand. Steve sees the flash of pink splash into the water. He starts running, shouting that he'd get her, but I'm far nearer. I sit, telling Tom to stay back, and I swing both feet into the cold, feeling how deep it is, up to my thigh. She's not far in. She could almost stand up, but instead she floats. It's eerie how still she is. Water curtains her face so that she's magnified, staring up from underneath, terrified, mouth open. Little bits of green pond stuff floating over her cheeks. It all happens so quickly, but feels like forever, watching how helpless she is. I pull her out. Her coat makes her heavy, but I'm well able. Water spills from her mouth. She gulps air and begins sobbing loudly. She looks tiny, ringlets all flattened. She reaches for her dad, who makes it to us in seconds. Thanks. He takes her without looking at me. He tenderly says, shush, baby. Let's get you home to Mama. Mama, make it better. The way he says Mama to her, laden with comfort, almost worship in his voice, causes a pang I shouldn't feel. Sarah offers a hand to help, looking anxious, like she might be blamed for all this. I hand her the soaked dinosaur. Tom watches, entranced, and when I'm fully out, my muddy, silt-covered runners in view, he points at them, saying, dirty, Steve looks so protective now. A giant with an inconsolable child, she's buried herself in his chest, arms tight around what she can reach of his neck. His eyes look clearer and calmer than they have all morning. He looks almost normal. Our eyes meet and we sort of nod in understanding. See you at work, he says, nodding once more. He hurries away, one precious girl in arms, another spinning the fluffy dinosaur dry. A chink of light opens in the sky far in the distance, and I think the day might brighten later. We head for the car, Tom doing the 1-2 wee thing with just me swinging him. and my feet squelching pond water with every step.
Thank you so much, Niamh, for that wonderful reading. And may I say that we loved the way that you handled dialogue in that story, the adults having this coded conversation, a conversation that is so important to them, surrounded by these small children, and that wonderful scene of her tumbling into the lake. Our next reader, I'm delighted to introduce Olivia Fitzsimons, who will read An Island Beyond an Island. Olivia Fitzsimons is a northerner living in Greystones, County Wicklow. Her flash fiction has appeared or is forthcoming in the Honest Ulsterman, Crannog, Boyne Berries, Cabinet of Heed, Solidalgo, Flashback Fiction, and Derrissing. In 2017, she was shortlisted for the Sunday Business Post Penguin Short Story Prize and longlisted for the Fish Short Story Prize 2018. Her flash fiction, We Don't Understand the Machines We Have Created, was shortlisted for the Retreat West Flash Fiction Prize in 2017 and will be published in the anthology Impermanent Facts by Retreat West Books later this year. She was recently selected for the Words Ireland mentoring programme and has attended the Stinging Fly Fiction Summer School. She tweets as One Flawed Iris. Olivia's story is a very beautifully crafted piece of historical fiction. The language is rich and evocative. The historical detail is wonderful in this story, and it's detail that's managed very well. The historical facts add to but never overpower the other elements of the story, and the relationships at the centre of the story are presented to us with beautiful level of nuance and subtlety, I think. Can we have a welcome, please, for Olivia Fitzsimons?
Hello. I just want to echo Niamh's thanks to Madeleine and Danielle for all your help. It's been wonderful. So this is my story, An Island Beyond an Island. My mother says I am to be a merchant's wife. She removes brown web linen dresses from my case, filling the space with newly made blue and white striped petticoats. I am to marry a man from the port of Cork called Beamish. A fine man, she says. A man of standing, handsome, a man of some taste. A man who has a brewery and sends all the best butter and linen to the West Indies. Controls what comes in and out of his port. I thought it belonged to the city, I said. How can a man control the sea? Foolish child, my mother sighs. You must behave like a queen. I think only of butter and laugh. The Right Honourable Mr. Beamish spied me at the Downpatrick races last July, when I was all of 15 summers, laughing with a gaggle of other foolish girls, daughters of lesser merchants all. Trussed up and on display, my skin glowed a little too much with sun, and the burnish caught his gaze. Transfixed by my tiny waist, bought of running barefoot through the 12-acre loney on long summer evenings, the circumference of my life drew him further in. Like a fish, I was caught. He traded my father a long lease for his only daughter, a secure route to the West Indies for our linen. I became another commodity. At his request, we will be married in Cork, away from the cathedral that I've grown accustomed to, without my ladies from school. My mother sits silently, clutching my dresses on the bed. It is a great honour, she says finally. He is a great man. She cannot bring herself to say she will miss me. My father is no better. He struck his bargain well. He places me in the left hand of his ledger and closes the account.
I suck the air in and out, seeking to be released back to the fresh water, but no salvation comes. So I ask for servants, bidden help me be a wife, help to navigate the strange and various dialects, espouse the social mores. For Cork, though Ireland still, was like the other side of the world to me, not the bottom of our squabbled land. My mother consumes herself with packing and matrimonial talk, so I'd slip away, walk out through our estate, heavy with lilac blooms and soft summer flowers, which smell only of loss to me now, and hide my shoes in the well-worn gap in the stone wall. I trail my hands through wheat higher than my head, cool my ankles in our stream that flows away from my heart, and wait for him. We knew this day was coming. The games we played in the summer grain fields since we were children, when I would cast off all my learning and lie with poetry in his lap, and feel the heat from his skin burn into me until the ground grew cold beneath us and I had to run for home. I meet my merchant prince but once before we wed, and he swans round me. He thinks I am his pen already. My mother does not leave us alone yet, and I am glad. He presents my parochial parents with a cartography of his factories, stuffed together like trapped trophies above the swirling River Lee. He is not so old, my mother says when he departs. His visage could be worse, but I think if he, like my father, converses grain all day, then drinks its amber in the night, I'd rather die in the cold, dark waters of that river. Travel by train is proffered, but I, as bride-to-be, demur my maiden voyage to the Irish seas, and stow away my love. He hails from Bright, and the parish name could be his, because he is as beautiful as he is bookish. He learnt to read on my bare belly, too poor for Daïs in school, reciting words perfectly before I would permit him touch me. A trail of letters led him to my sex. He took his time and perfected pronunciation while I swelled with all the want of him. My clever love of words broke into me like water, and he speaks to me down there, like rivers licking the land they love, infrequently touching the shoreline, teasing the loch with their lapping lips. I took him with me. A servant boy would impress my master, I told my mother, and his sister then, she insisted, my maid. They'd have each other in that strange city, and you will have help and home. His sister makes eyes at me in a way her brother dares not to. She knows well we lay together, married in our hearts since before we could find the words to say it out loud. I take him to my cabin before the vessel round Strangford Loch. We part the Narrows, and I scream in pleasure. I smile roundly at the sailors, and they talk, how they talk of me, but I could not care less. I only blush between my thighs. I am not a pious mistress. Scant talk of God and all his saints falls from my mouth. We use each night like it's the last, and I quiver at the slightest glimpse of him. There are no plans to run away, to dive into the unknown blue of precarious fortune. Our lives are as predestined as the vertical motion of the sea that propels us here. Constant desire, moving towards our destination. So we flow stable and unrelenting towards each other and the end of everything. The day Cork Port comes onto the horizon, I empty the contents of my stomach over the bow of the ship, and my heart is gladder than it has ever been. After all our binding, we depart the boat as strangers, me mistress and master. My love acquiesces, releases my hand into my new husband's on the galley of the ship as I sway, unsteady, my sea legs long gone, and I am just another piecemeal of livestock. Rabbits or rats, they will all die soon. My husband tells me we will not live in the inner city, but go to Montanully and reside in splendour there, like kings, look down upon the city from on high. My northern sister keeps my vows for us, so my love drifts from me. Before I can order new dresses and call her aunt, she tells me in a letter, with her imperfect scrawl, they have departed for the West Indies and a better life. For a time my belly makes me bitter. My new husband is insatiable and congratulates himself on our happy news. Our son is like his father, I could, eager to make his mark on this world. Our baby lies on my soft belly and sounds bubble from his tiny mouth, eyes bright with knowledge. I collect art and lovers, only things of wild sublime beauty catch my eye. People come from far and wide to praise my husband's fine taste. We like each other well enough. The sound of my voice does not command his heart or head. He does not listen to me, unpicks my words, casts them off like the crack from a whip. I am a little woman to him, his comely wife, his broodmare of companionship. I find myself often at the river, restless. I wander dressed in brown web linen frocks, barefoot. I seek out travellers and sailors, all who pass through this place freely, who can tell me stories of everywhere but here. My fingers trace the darkened skin of navvies, and his severed laugh rises up in their common squabbles. I hear his voice in the galley sails and taste his kisses in spices. I never look for him, but I'm greedy and make love on the water as often as I can. The smell of straw and sweat and foreign voices push my heart along the River Lee to the great Atlantic swell, but outside I remain solid and demure. Years pass and my husband says free trade is blossoming in the Indies and we may go there to meet a merchant sugar owner. He tells me tales of some poor Irish fellows who ended up indentured slaves and some who ended up as lords. I wonder which you are, my love. I think you would not want either. You remain like me, I hope, an island beyond an island.
Thank you, Olivia. That was gorgeous. And one of the things we admired about that story is that you write so well about sex, which is quite a difficult thing to get right, actually. Thank you. Our next reader is Deirdre Kingston, who's going to read a story called Catch and Release. Deirdre Kingston writes short stories, flash fiction and historical fiction. Her flash fiction has been published in The Incubator, and her writing was selected in 2014 and 2016 for the Date with an Agent event at the International Literature Festival Dublin. In 2018, her story Donatio Mortis Causa was shortlisted and published in the From the Well anthology. She lives in Cork with her husband and 3 children. Some of the many things that we liked about this story is the emotional tug, the way that the relationship between the 2 young people is so beautifully portrayed with great depth of feeling there, and at the same time it's created with a very light touch. We also loved the humour in the story, and we loved the way that the detail of fishing is used throughout the story, and the role that the river plays, the way that it's evoked in various stages. So can we have a welcome please for Deirdre Kingston.
Thank you, Danielle, and thank you, Madeleine, for everything you did last night. Catch and release. The whole fishing thing started 2 weeks after Luke and I finished the junior cert. His mother came home from work for the 3rd day running to find us watching Netflix in a house that smelt of stale socks and pizza. Luke's mum is a short woman, short hair, short temper, sharp fingernails. Do something useful, she said. Clear out the shed. The fridge door slammed shut and the kitchen filled with the sound of a can fizzing over. There's €10 in it, between you, and you can sell anything of your father's that you find in there. Ah, shite, Luke said, and flicked off the telly. Luke's father went off with a young one he met at the jazz 2 years ago. She's Lithuanian and has arms in her like a butcher. Luke says she can only cook egg white omelettes, and she keeps the fridge full of pickled cabbage. So he stopped staying with them at weekends with his dad once he turned 16. He never talks about his dad now. I followed Luke to the back door. He and I have been friends ever since we fought in Montessori over a 3-wheel truck that nobody else wanted. Abby, his mother called over her shoulder when I was halfway out the door. That leather jacket must be very heavy in this weather. Wouldn't you get yourself a few nice t-shirts? I made a face at her because she wasn't really that pissed with me, and she knows I only wear black. She doesn't mind me spending so much time with Luke, even though my mother says I should hang around with some of the girls from school. My mother goes to all my younger brother's soccer matches with a pair of Gucci sunglasses nailed to the top of her head like a tiara, and she pretends not to love it when people say my brother will be discovered by Man United. Any day now. Luke's mam's shed was full of the usual shit. Paint cans, bits of things that belonged with other things. Things that came from Luke's nan's house after she died. And down the back, like someone was trying to hide it, we found his father's fishing gear. A big box filled with new fishing tackle, some still in the packets. Hooks, weights, fishing gut, and best of all, 2 rods that looked like they had never been used. We'll sell them on Dundee, Luke said, but his brother Connor told him we'd get nothing for stuff like that. Connor is 3 years older than Luke. After their father moved in with the Lithuanian one, Connor dropped out of school for a while, but next year he's repeating the Liffey Sound, and he's working for the summer. Tell you what you'll do now, Connor said, rolling up a cigarette with one hand. There's a fella down the city end of Barrack Street with a fish and chip shop that's paying €20 a go for a bag of pollock. There's 2 Polish fellas inside that work with me making a packet on the side selling fish like that. The next morning, we went down to the river where it flows at the bottom of the Grand Parade, near Parliament Bridge, and spent 2 hours towing in lines. Around the time we started to think of flinging the rods and the whole lot in over the railings and heading home for a bit to eat, an old fella who was watching us from the opposite bank came over the bridge. "What kind of bait are they?" he said, and poked a finger around in the fishing box. "You'll catch nothing on this end of the river. This tackle is only for sea fishing." "My dad caught loads with it down the Lee fields," Luke said. "Trout, salmon, every kind of thing." "Did he now?" the old fella said, and looked Luke up and down, like he was examining a plate of sandwiches. "Well, he didn't catch them with anything in the box. What fish are they after anyway?" "Pollock," I said. The old fella emptied out the little compartments and the drawers in the top of the box, then closed the lid. He laid out weights and long hooks with metal fringes that reminded me of dangly earrings. He said they were called lures, and he rigged up the 2 fishing rods. Then he showed us how to cast. The trick, he said, was to dangle the hook over the water, steady the weight, and then cast off with a fast flick of the wrist. After a few tries, we got the hang of it. Then the old fella told Luke to go over to the English market to buy half a dozen mackerel for bait, but I went instead, because Luke never goes into the market. The Lithuanian girlfriend works inside there at a stand selling imported groceries, jars of carrots and jars of sausages that look like dead men's fingers. When I came back from the market, the old fella told us we should go down to Horgan's Quay at the back of the railway station because the place would be teeming with pollock. "There's too much river water up here," he said, "so the pollock won't come up. Below in the quay now, there's more sea water, and that's where you'll find pollock." He was right. The river was different down on Horgan's Quay. It was thick as packet soup and looked like it would suck you in and drag you to the bottom before spitting you out again. It smelt of seaweed, old clothes, other places, and in less than an hour we had 5 pollock caught. 3 big ones and 2 small ones that maybe we should have thrown back in again while they were still alive. The fish came up out of the water, twisting and turning, fighting with the hooks. We laid them on the quay wall and watched them suffocate, and afterwards, Luke cut the hooks out of them. He doesn't mind any of that. Blood, things dying. When their dog died, he was the one who dug a hole at the end of the garden, while Connor stayed up in his room. We caught 3 more good-sized fish, and then Luke said, "My dad's a real prick. Does he want you to go to stay with him again?" "No, it's that fishing gear. My mum got it for him. She bought it out of the money my nan left her. She bought it for his birthday, a present. So how does that make him a prick? You heard what the old fella said about the bait. My dad never fished for trout and salmon up the river. So where did he get all the fish?" I had to think about that for a while, and then I understood. The market? He's some prick all right. Luke made a funny sound, a cross between a squeak and a croak, and I glanced at him out of the corner of my eye. For all the time since Montessori, I only saw Luke cry twice. The first time was at his nan's funeral, and after that, the day he came home from school and found his dad was gone. You know the reason I won't go to stay with him anymore? They're going to have a baby in September. He's going on about it like there was never a baby born before. Does your man know? She says they call it something weird, like victory or magic. Magic McCarthy? Luke laughed, but it came out all wrong, like a cough. When I'm 18, I said, "I'm going to change my name. You can do it with a deed poll. I'm going to call myself Taylor." "Taylor?" Luke said, and rubbed his face. "But that's a boy's name. Your mother will have a fit. Taylor's not a boy's name. It's neutral. I hate my name. Abby? That's a name for cats and old ladies." "No, it's not. Fuck off. Fuck off yourself." Luke picked up his fishing rod and cast out a line. The line dropped about 10 feet out from the wall, and the river pulled it sideways. "Anyway, my mother won't care if I change my name. She's only worried about my brother and his break into big-time football." "Ronaldo O'Brien," Luke said, and laughed properly now. "Seriously though, about your name? Don't change it. I like it. You've always been Abby." Beneath the quay wall, the river pushed past us, on through the quays, down to Tivoli docks and out to the sea. Our feet dangled over it, 2 pairs of shoes, side by side, touching slightly.
Thank you, Deirdre. That's an absolutely wonderful story. It's sad and it's very funny at the same time. And we loved the beautifully understated way that you draw the relationship between those 2 teenagers who are such a support for each other at a time when there's so much turmoil going on in life around them. And that brings to an end our readings this afternoon. Can we have a big round of applause, please, for our 3 readers? They're 3 very talented writers, and they put a lot of work into their stories, and I know we're going to be reading more stories from them again, and we'll be watching out for those stories. So thanks very much to the 3D, and thanks to Pat Potter and the Munster Literature Centre, and also to Cork City Libraries, and to all of you for coming along to our event this afternoon. Thanks, everyone.